Hi there, this is Evan here, Molendinarius from the Latinum Institute. And the text we're looking at here is the On the Nature of Things by Lucretius, the famous lines, Eneadum genetrix hominum divunque voluptas, etc. But what I'm not going to show you here is the actual poem itself, but in this edition in Usum Delphini, what we're looking at is this, the Interpretatio. The Interpretatio is a rewrite of the poem into Latin prose. So once your Latin reaches a certain level where you can read Latin prose reasonably well, but perhaps you're still struggling with poetry, this type of intermediate text where the poetry and the poetical language is explained through the interpretation in Latin is a very good middle ground. And I believe it's better to read an interpretation in Latin than it is to look at an English translation. By all means, have a quick look at an English translation of a classical text to see more or less what you're dealing with. That does help. And I believe almost everybody does that, from the highest university lecturer down to people at the bottom of the rung. People, when they're looking at a new text that does exist with a translation, will often consult the translation either in advance or as they go along, because it's quicker to do that than it is to search for words in a dictionary. So here we have a different situation, one where it's assumed that you already have a decent Latin vocabulary, that you can handle Latin prose that's written in a relatively simple manner. And here we go. Fecunda Venus, mater Eneadarum, deliciae hominum atque deorum, quae infra volubile stellas caeli frequentas mare velivolum, et terras fructiferas. Siquidem omnis gens animalium generatur per te, et generata videt lucem solis, oder inquam venti et nimbi aeris recedunt a te, et ab accessu tuo terra varietate florens. And now we jump down to the next section. Subicit tibi gratos flores, campi maris aequati subrident tibi, et serenum caelum illucit dispersa ubique luce. Namque ubi primum pulchritudo vernalis tempris patuit, et flatus favonii, qui facit ad generationem rerum, laxatus spirat, tunc primo aves aeteriae percitaetur numine intra pectora praenuntiant te odea, et tum adventum. De inde feroces belluae et pecora saltant per vernantia Pasqua, et transmittunt etiam flumina rapacia. Adeo aude totum genus animalium ad ductum tua venustate. Tuisque lenociniis subsequitur te, in quacumque partem conaris impellere quod libet illorum. Demum et in aequoribus, et in montibus, et in fluminibus rapidis, et in tectis frondosis volucrum, et in agris viridibus, in iciens cunctis animantibus hilarem amorem intra corda facis. Ut alacrite quaeque multiplicent genus suum per singulas species, and so on. So as you can see, if you consult the Latin, you'll see that the interpretation gives slightly more especially as we go on in the text, than the Latin itself. Let's look at line 10. Nam simul ac species patifactes verna diei, et reserata vigit genitalis aura favoni. And namque ubi primum bucritudo vernalis tempris patuit et flatus favoni, qui facit ad generationem rerum laxatus spirat, etc. So you see that the Latin prose section is more comprehensible than the Latin poetry for a first read through. So that's the interpretation of Michael Faus from the version of Lucretius, which you'll find on Google Books. If you search for Titi Lucreti Cari de Rerum Natura Libros 6 and then type Michael Faus, F-A-V-U-S, into your search, you should find this text, or the Usum Delphini. If you type that into your search, you should find it as well. I highly recommend these texts with their interpretations in Latin for advancing your Latin knowledge. It's very useful to be able to read lots of material very quickly and rapidly, and the more Latin you read, the better your Latin will get. So it's useful to have these type of texts that are not too difficult, and therefore something that you, as an intermediate student, because this of course is intended for intermediate, upper intermediate students, or what some might call advanced, but I think just intermediate in terms of actual fluency that you could reach, these texts are accessible. They were written for students and advanced students in modern terms, but the Latin is not too difficult. Obviously the vocabulary of Lucretius is there and you need to master it, but in terms of the grammar, much easier to read the prose than to read the poetry. So that's all from me for this short video. I hope you found it a little bit useful, and I would highly recommend that this particular text you download and have a look at. You might find, unfortunately, that the typeface isn't as clear as it could be in some places, but most of it's pretty good. I've seen a few online PDF files of interpretations, or what's called the Ordo sometimes, O-R-D-O, of the Latin, where particularly for Lucretius the prose Ordo or Interpretatio isn't as clear as it could be because it's in very small typeface, and the scan hasn't picked it up, or the original print wasn't as clear as it could have been. So that's where we are. Latinum, which you can find at latinum.org.uk, and if you feel so inclined, you can go over there, subscribe, and join the Latin course, or just support this YouTube channel by subscribing at Latinum at Patreon. I hope that was some use. Bye for now.